Hey everyone, it's Andre Luck here to share my video for this week where I'm going to talk about closing new sales. So, we talked in the first two videos about getting people into awareness stage and getting people into your pipeline where they're ready to meet with your sales team. Now, I'm going to talk about what a lot of people deem as the most important step in the process, which is to get them and convert them into a new sale. I think this is personally one of the hardest parts. That's why salespeople get paid so well, because at the end of the day, a lot of people like impacting and affecting sales, but not a lot of people want to be on the front line and the one that's accountable for actually having to close the sale. So, what I'll talk through are ways that sales teams get it wrong in sports, and really focus on the meeting because when you're looking at closing B2B sales within sports, especially high five, six-figure deals, there's a lot of meetings. It's more consultative of a process. So, I'm going to talk through what that looks like and best practices to make sure that you're moving the deal forward and ultimately getting them across the finish line to a high dollar sale. So, the first thing I'm going to touch on is where sports teams get it wrong. And, some of these mistakes I've made myself. So I'm speaking from experience, so not calling anyone out there. But the first thing is you take a B2C approach because we are so good in sports about talking about selling tickets to fans, to consumers, that sometimes we forget that when you're looking at a high five figure, six figure, $100,000 plus deal within sports, there's a different approach you have to take. You really have to focus on selling business outcomes and not tickets. I know I say that a lot, but that's something I really want to harp on. You got to differentiate your sales tactics from a B2C standpoint, where it's a lot more about products, features, benefits. And on the B2B side, you almost want to talk about tickets and features last, and you want to justify how your solution can help them solve a big business challenge, especially if they're going to make a large investment like this. Other areas where people get it wrong is they think that when they're talking to one person within the company, they're good. They're not what we call multi-threaded. They don't have additional advocates and contacts within the organization. So if you're talking to the head of sales, you also want to be connected with the head of marketing. You want to potentially get connected with finance, the CRO, others within the organization. One, if someone ever leaves, you have another advocate for you within the organization. But two, there's buying committees. So you want to be engaged with multiple people that are going to be involved in this decision above and below your main contact so that you're getting buy-in and support from all areas. Another area where we mess up is there's no clear next step. We kind of leave it vague. We kind of leave it open. Sometimes because we're afraid to, push forward and ask for that decision out of people or ask them to move forward with next steps. That we leave it vague. We give them information and say, "Hey, get back to me." And then, if this isn't a top priority, like number one priority on their things to do, there's so many other objectives, responsibilities that a business person has that a lot of times that this gets pushed down and then deals stall because you just lose momentum and people just aren't excited as maybe they were when we first started. So that's something we got to make sure we're doing. And I'll talk through the best ways to do that. The other challenge is, a lot of sports teams or sales teams in general don't have a documented process. They kind of let salespeople wing it and do their thing. And it's very important to structure once you've gotten this person to a meeting, like what's our process to move them through the pipeline and ultimately across the finish line to a sale. And the best people, they're going to take that template, that playbook, that roadmap that you give them, and they're going to, morph off of that and just use their natural ability and talents. But to give everyone a structured process so they know the steps they need to take, the questions they need to ask at certain stages, and how do you move someone properly through all the different stages in the process of documenting, building that playbook. And the last thing I'd say is they're afraid to ask for the sale. And this more is on the seller side because, when you're asking for 100,000, 200, $500,000 for an investment, a lot of times like we're afraid to ask because we wouldn't pay that much, or that seems like a lot of money to us. But if you're talking to some of these businesses and you're talking to some of these large corporations, this is a minimal investment to them. Some of these are 10, 50, $100 million plus businesses that this is a small expense, especially if they're going to get an ROI off this or they're going to get a return from this that's going to bring them even more money on the back end, that they'll always look at opportunities that are going to bring them a large investment. So now I want to talk through some things to make sure that you're capitalizing and maximizing on that, which is really in the meeting stage. And really a lot of this work goes back to the things we talked about in the last few videos of making sure that you're building your brand and excitement and that you're doing the right job targeting the right type of people. Because a lot of times we want to pitch high dollar products, but we haven't gotten the right quality of leads coming in, or we've been really focused on volume and we haven't taken the time to take a strategic approach and like who are the companies we should go after, who are companies similar to other companies that spend high dollars with us, so we could use some of those testimonials and share social proof and things like that. But let's assume that we've done all that right. We've gotten the right prospects that we're meeting with, or we're meeting with the right people within the organization or the right contacts. One thing I really like to preach on this stage is slow is fast. A lot of times we want to rush people through the process, and in sales, time kills sales. But when you're looking at a strategic, large investment like this, like you got to take your time with it. Obviously, you want to create urgency, you want to keep momentum going and move the deals through the process, but you don't want to rush it and jump too quickly to trying to pitch a solution and get a decision. We want to make sure that we're asking the right questions through the process and running proper discovery and moving to the next stages and engaging all people are going to be involved in the decision from a strategic standpoint to make sure that we have success on the back end. Also, another reason why meetings are so important, and we're not just trying to close them over the phone or just get them right down to the ballpark or to the stadium. It allows you to do proper discovery. So in sports, one of our best assets is games, and people can experience the games in real life. It's bringing them down to the ballpark or the stadium, and I'm not against that if that's the first touch point, but I just wouldn't use that as my opportunity to really assess and see the business impact from a B2B standpoint. I think it's good for them to come out. You can touch base, put a face to the name, let them experience and kind of see what it's like. But you're going to have multiple meetings after that first interaction at a game or at the ballpark to really talk through how is this going to make a business impact for them? How is this going to make strategic sense for them and being integrated into other programs that are going to help them drive money and drive revenue? So that's where you can uncover some of those things. And I encourage the first step, if you can go out of office, if it makes sense to do that, but also sometimes it's more efficient, maybe not as effective, but more efficient to meet virtually. A lot of people are open to that, especially if it's a first discovery call. But I think sometimes we mess up by trying to get people to come down to the ballpark or come to the arena or the stadium. I always liken it back to myself. If someone's trying to pitch me and I'm still in the stage where I'm just curious, I'm not necessarily committed or ready to go. I'm not going to drive 15, 20, 30 minutes an hour in traffic to go meet with somebody so they could pitch me. I would prefer that they come to me because I have a ton of other things that are on my to-do list and meetings that I'm in and priorities and things like that. So we want to make it easy for them. We want to, put ourselves in their shoes and accommodate what's going to make the most sense for them from that standpoint. Some tips to increase your meeting show rate, especially early in the process. Um, sending confirmation emails. So if it's a couple weeks out, sending an email, maybe 8, 10 days out, just expressing your excitement for the upcoming meeting, and then the day before just confirming, well, not even really confirming if they're available, just let them know you're excited and maybe an agenda if you have that of what you're going to be talking about so they can come prepared to the meeting. And then for you, do your homework too. There's so many tools out there. Obviously, you can look up annual reports. You can Google things about them. You can go on their website. ChatGPT, Perplexity now, you can do so much research and understand about their company, who you're meeting with, come informed. So you're not wasting the first 10, 15 minutes to tell me about your company. You should have already done that research. It probably made sense back in the day, but even then, a lot of decision makers and a lot of business people didn't have time and energy for a sales rep that didn't come prepared to the meeting. You want to provide value. So you want to take time to learn about them, maybe some objectives, priorities that you see that you can come prepared with to that conversation. So do your homework, do your research, take your time to come prepared and prep for that first discovery meeting. So I'm going to talk through running a proper discovery now. And I'll hit it from a high level standpoint because there's a lot that goes into it. And I spend, half a day plus just on this in my trainings. But from a high level perspective, going into this discovery meeting, there's a couple questions that you want to get answered, and especially if this is a 6-figure plus deal. Like, why would they spend, $100,000 plus on tickets? Like, what's the problem that you're going to be solving for them that justifies that? So you want to understand, what is the business need? Because a lot of times we go in and just pitch it, and obviously we're going to give our best effort, but if there's not a need, like they're not going to take action, especially if they're not feeling pain within their business or a problem that you can solve. Sometimes just their excitement or love for the team isn't going to do it. Even if they lead with that, there has to be a business problem that you're going to help them solve, or there's no way they're going to make this investment just because they like the team and they want to have a good seating location or have a suite from a business standpoint. If they're just a high net worth individual, that's different. But this is B2B, someone that you're reaching out to and trying to justify a business use case. You want to understand what their top business priorities are. So for this upcoming year, for the next few years, like how is their business growing? This isn't just in the now, like we're looking at how does this impact them and set them up for long term. So asking executive level questions around that. Figure out who gets involved in some of these conversations. Maybe you're working with the director or VP of sales or someone that's a director or head of marketing, but others are typically involved and need to sign off. There's no more final decision maker like there used to be back in the day, but there are people that need to quantify and assess like the business impact here and give the green light, thumbs up. And there's silent assassins within that buying committee that you may never meet. you may never hear from, but they could really kill your deal. So really understanding who all is involved in that and what's their process to make buying decisions. Have they made purchases like this before? And if so, like what are the steps to go through? And if they haven't, that's your job to coach them through that because you're the expert. So you do this on a day-to-day basis. Like typically when you work with people, here's how the process works. You want to coach them and work them through that to make sure that's what's happening. Then after you have that meeting, or actually no, while you're still in the meeting, really, like I said, you want to talk about tickets last. So you want to understand, where are they at today? Where are they looking to go to in the future? Where does this rank of like their on their priority list of like all the priorities that they're focused on? If this is like a top one or two priority, it's something that maybe gets pushed through a little quicker. If it's like six or seven, you have a long shot to try and get this pushed through, and it just helps you kind of set expectations. But you want to learn all the answers to those questions so you can make an ROI case. And you can't promise that we're going to get a 10x return, but you can start to build out a case that you all can build together as to why this investment is going to bring them, 10x ROI that they're shooting for, or how can this help them hit and achieve their goals. And then at the end of that, once you've got them bought into the concept and you've identified a business need that you could help with, then you're going to talk about tickets last. Because at the end of the day, the tickets, the location, whether they sit in this section on the first base side or this section on the third base side, it's not going to matter as much as what business challenge is this going to help them solve? Is this going to help them grow their new business? And that another 10% is this going to help them retain their top 20% of clients because they've had a high churn or turnover rate over the past few years? Like those are things we need to figure out and focus on, not this comes with in-seat service. Obviously, you want to make sure it's a great experience so they see the value in it, but also pair that with the business outcome that you have. So tickets, I always try and talk about a last thing possible, because to me, that's the least important of how they're going to make this decision.